Chapter 4: The Dark Reality of Hunger. The cold was terrifying, but it wasn't the greatest killer. Hunger was. Winter didn't simply freeze the world, it erased food. The green forests of summer became silent. Berry bushes stood empty. Roots were locked beneath frozen ground. Rivers disappeared beneath thick sheets of ice. Even the animals changed. Large herds migrated hundreds of miles away. The few that remained became weaker, more aggressive, and far harder to find. Every hunt became a gamble. Hunters could spend 2 or 3 days tracking an animal, only to return with nothing. And every failed hunt created another problem. The body burns enormous amounts of energy trying to stay warm. The colder the weather became, the more calories people needed just to survive. That meant winter created a cruel cycle. Less food, but greater hunger. Ancient humans understood something most people never think about today. Food wasn't just fuel, it was time. Every piece of dried meat, every handful of nuts, every strip of animal fat bought the tribe another day of life. That's why almost nothing from a successful hunt was wasted. The meat was eaten. The organs provided essential nutrients. The bones were cracked open to reach the rich marrow hidden inside. Even the skin became clothing. The tendons became thread. Nothing was thrown away because survival couldn't afford waste, long before refrigerators existed. Ancient humans invented their own ways to preserve food. Fresh meat spoiled quickly, especially once temperatures began rising near the end of winter, so hunters sliced meat into thin strips. They hung it over slow fires, or dried it in cold, moving air. Removing the moisture made it much harder for bacteria to grow. Some groups stored frozen meat beneath snow, or inside naturally cold underground pits. Nature became their freezer. But one food mattered more than almost everything else: fat. Today, many people try to avoid eating fat. For ancient humans, fat was survival itself. It contained far more energy than lean meat. A single meal rich in animal fat could keep the body warm for much longer. The richest hunters weren't those carrying the biggest pieces of meat. They were the ones carrying the fattiest ones. Still, there were winters when even these preparations weren't enough. The stored food disappeared. The hunting grounds became empty. Children cried from hunger. Parents skipped meals so the youngest could eat. Entire tribes packed everything they owned and began walking through deep snow in search of animals. Some found new hunting grounds. Others vanished into the frozen wilderness, never to be seen again. Winter demanded impossible choices, but even during humanity's darkest winters, one thing gave people a better chance than strength, better than weapons, and even better than fire: each other. Chapter 5: The greatest survival tool was never fire. If you had asked an ancient human, "What is the most important thing for surviving winter?" they probably wouldn't have answered fire or food or even shelter. The real answer was people. A single person alone rarely survived a harsh winter, but a tribe had hope. Winter forced humans to learn one of the greatest lessons in our history. Survival is a team effort. Imagine a hunter breaking his leg during a chase, alone. He would almost certainly die. He couldn't hunt. He couldn't gather firewood. He couldn't travel. And he couldn't escape predators. But inside a tribe, everything changed. The strongest hunters searched for food. Others gathered wood before another snowstorm arrived. The experienced healers treated injuries using plants, animal fat, and carefully made splints. Older members stayed behind to protect the children. Mothers prepared food. Everyone had a role. No one survived winter alone. Scientists have discovered something remarkable. Ancient human skeletons have been found with completely healed broken legs, crushed arms, and serious injuries that would have made hunting impossible for months. Yet these people survived, not because they healed quickly, but because someone cared for them every single day. Someone brought them food. Someone kept the fire burning. Someone protected them while they recovered. Those ancient bones tell a powerful story. Compassion may have been one of humanity's greatest evolutionary advantages, but teamwork wasn't only about survival, it was also about knowledge. Every evening, as the wind howled outside, families gathered around the fire. The children listened, the elders spoke, hunters explained where the herds had traveled, healers showed which plants eased pain and which ones could kill. Toolmakers demonstrated how to sharpen stone blades. Parents taught children how to recognize dangerous animal tracks hidden beneath fresh snow. These weren't ordinary conversations. They were survival lessons. One forgotten detail could cost an entire family their lives before spring. Without realizing it, ancient humans were building something far greater than a tribe. They were building generations of knowledge. Each child learned a little more than the generation before. Each winter added another lesson. Each mistake became another warning. Slowly, that shared knowledge became humanity's greatest weapon. Not a spear, not a bow, not even fire. Knowledge, passed from one generation to the next. That is why humans succeeded where countless other species failed. Because every winter made them wiser, and every survivor passed that wisdom forward. But despite everything they had learned, ancient humans were still willing to attempt something almost impossible, a medical procedure so shocking that even modern scientists were amazed when they discovered the evidence thousands of years later. Chapter 6: The First Surgeons of the Ice Age. Now, here's something almost impossible to believe. Imagine walking across an ancient burial site. Archaeologists carefully brush away thousands of years of dirt. They uncover a human skull. At first, it looks completely ordinary, but then they notice something strange: a perfectly shaped circular hole cut into the top of the skull. Not a crack, not the result of an animal attack, not damage caused by time. It was made by another human being, deliberately. Today, the procedure is known as trepanation. It is one of the oldest surgical practices ever discovered. At first, it sounds horrifying. How could ancient humans possibly perform surgery? Without hospitals? Without anesthesia? Without modern surgical tools? The answer surprised scientists. Many of these ancient skulls show something extraordinary. The edges around the opening had completely healed. That means these people didn't die during their procedure. They survived. Some even lived for years afterward. Think about that for a moment. Thousands of years before modern medicine, before medical schools, before steel scalpels, ancient humans were already attempting delicate procedures on the human body. No one knows exactly why they performed trepanation. Some researchers believe it was used to relieve pressure after serious head injuries. Others think it may have been an attempt to treat severe headaches or neurological illnesses. It may even have carried spiritual or ritual significance in some communities. The truth is, we still don't know for certain, but one fact is impossible to ignore. These people possessed remarkable skill. The tools were incredibly simple: sharpened pieces of stone, flint blades, bone instruments, carefully shaped by hand. There were no bright operating rooms, no heart monitors, no antibiotics waiting nearby. Every movement demanded patience. Every mistake could be fatal. Yet somehow, some patients recovered. What made that possible? Part of the answer was experience. Generation after generation, knowledge was passed from one healer to the next. They learned through observation, through practice, through failure, and through survival. The human body became their teacher. Nature became their textbook. Every successful treatment added another lesson. Every mistake became a warning for the future. Long before written medical books existed, humanity was already collecting medical knowledge, not with ink, but with memory. These discoveries reveal something remarkable about our ancestors. They weren't simply trying to survive winter, they were trying to save one another. And perhaps that willingness to help another human, even when success wasn't guaranteed, became the greatest survival strategy our species ever discovered. Chapter 7: Winter didn't just test humans, it created them. By the time spring finally arrived, the survivors weren't the same people who had entered winter. They were stronger, smarter, more prepared. Every brutal winter left behind a lesson, and every lesson increased humanity's chances of surviving the next one. Winter wasn't just an enemy, it was a teacher. The cold forced humans to invent better clothing. Hunger forced them to preserve food. The lack of shelter pushed them to become builders. Long, freezing nights encouraged people to share stories, teach children, and pass knowledge from one generation to the next. Without realizing it, winter was shaping the human mind. It rewarded patience, planning, discipline, and cooperation. The tribes that prepared during summer were the tribes that survived the winter. Those that wasted food, ignored warning signs, or refused to work together often disappeared from history. Nature was making a choice, not about who was the strongest, but about who could adapt the fastest. That ability to adapt would eventually take humans far beyond frozen forests. It would carry them across icy mountains, into vast deserts, across open oceans, and eventually to every continent on Earth. The same problem solving skills that helped ancient humans survive freezing winters would one day build cities, create agriculture, invent medicine, and even send people into space. When you really think about it, modern civilization began long before the First Kingdom, long before the first written language, long before history books. It began around small campfires, where families shared their last meal, protected one another from the cold, and refused to give up. Perhaps that's the greatest lesson winter ever taught humanity. The strongest person doesn't always survive. The smartest person doesn't always survive. The people who survive are the ones who adapt, the ones who prepare, and the ones who stand together when everything else falls apart. The next time you step into a warm house, pull on a winter jacket, or enjoy a hot meal on a freezing day, remember this: those simple comforts weren't handed to us, they were earned by countless generations who faced winters far colder, far darker, and far more dangerous than anything most of us will ever experience. Their courage became our inheritance. Their discoveries became our technology. Their determination became our future. If you enjoyed this journey into humanity's past, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more incredible stories about human evolution in history. Because the greatest stories in history are the ones that explain why we're still here.